Good morning, guys. Welcome to Tea with Me. Great to have you all again today. It is Friday, our usual Friday, and God has been good. I am having some jasmine tea this morning. Had a late night, uh, so I was hustling about a bit this morning. Didn't get really to see much what people were having. I saw some people having smoothies and something with ginger and all of that, but I didn't get to see. So I've been rushing around all morning, didn't even get away. But the way that I'm feeling as though there might have been some gain, because when you're busy up and down, you're not cutting up your salad, you're not doing those things. So I'm feeling like things probably a little haywire, but I didn't even get a chance this morning. But it's really great to have you all again today. And, I was just reminded, just while I was getting ready, tea with me, equip while we sip. And I pray that, we have been equipping. I pray that what we're hearing, we're able to add to our lives, that it does something, And from time to time, I will bring somebody on the show, something, to mix it up a bit. But the idea is to just, give you all something every time that we come. Today, I want to share a little thing. And if you could make it to the end of the video, you'll get a little shocker in the whole thing that I'm sharing here. Yeah. And I don't think I'll be long at all. But I was preparing something for the bulk up boot camp, which is for our teenagers, starting next Monday. And so I was looking through this video, something with Ben Carson. And he was talking about these conjoint twins that he came across because he was a brain surgeon and all of that. These conjoint twins, and they were actually well known throughout the world because they were grown up and they were joined at the head. And they were very accomplished. In fact, because they are Siamese twins, these conjoined twins, they had no choice but to go everywhere that, each other was going. And so they studied law, one probably by choice, the other one by force. They studied law, and they were very accomplished, well known, they were healthy, all of that. But they were very unhappy because this situation of being joined at the head, and, I really said I would have liked to show us a little piece of video, you see, and the thing is they joined at this part of the head. So, they kind of bent into each other like this, and that's how they were functioning. And they were very unhappy with the situation. So much so that they wanted to do the surgery to separate themselves. Okay? And they were told that the surgery would be 50-50. There's that chance of brain damage. There's that chance of death. I think the 50-50 was of death. And, he said the thing that moved him to take on the case, I don't think he did the actual operation, but he oversaw it. The thing that got to him, he said, was when they said, we would rather die than live like this, And it's something you could relate to. I mean, eventually they did do the surgery and they didn't make it. They started to bleed. This is toward the end of the surgery, the last part, when they felt they had success, they just started to bleed. They couldn't stop the bleeding, and that was the end, and they died. And when you think about it, I cannot imagine what life would have been like for them, joined permanently to another person, this Siamese twin situation, you're joined, permanently. And even if it's someone that you love, because what you got the impression from them that they liked each other, but they were joined in this way 24/7. You are in the same person's presence, right? You can't take a break. You can't get any privacy. You can't be independent. Wherever I go, you must go. Whatever you want to do, I have no choice. I have to be there. And so it's not something you could get away from. And I'm listening to this story and I'm telling myself, my goodness, even the people that you like a lot, you want a break from sometimes, right? That's life. But it reminded me of how, in Matthew chapter 11, 28 to 30, when Jesus tells you about the yoke. And that's not the clincher here. When he tells you about the yoke and, take my yoke upon you for, his burden is light and easy. And He tells us all of that. And it's about, yoking to him, being joined to him in that kind of way. But a better example, but before I get to that, human nature basically is to not be joined in this way. It's like if you want your space, you need your individuality, you want separation, right? And you could understand it, especially when you see it in a physical sense, like you see it with the twins. You want separation. You need that individuality, And when you look at Jesus, though, you realize, apart from the yoking part of it, the abiding, I think that brings it out even more. When Jesus tells us about abiding, you realize that there is this kind of joining that he expects. Abiding is a challenging thing for us. We will not admit it, but we abide and then not abide. Abide and then not abide. That is basically how we live this life, So abiding really has to do with that joining. It has to do with attaching. And the scripture, and this is not the clinching, this is not the part that I'll tell you, a little scary. It's what I share after this. So if you can make it to the end, right? Abiding in John 15, 4 and 5, he says, abide in me and I in you, right? He said, as the branch cannot bear fruit of itself except it abide in the vine. But when you're talking about a branch and you're talking about a vine and you're talking about this abiding, and we know that to abide is to dwell with and all of that. But the picture that you get when you're talking about the branch and the vine, this abiding is that he wants you to stick to continue with, to remain permanently attached to, and that is the picture you get. We have to be permanently attached to, so that wherever he goes, we must go. Whatever he is doing, we have to be a part of it. So that kind of conjoint twin kind of situation is what he's saying. So if we know, just think about it with the lives of these girls, right? These women who were joined to each other. It's like you always have eyes on you. There were certain things that they could not do because, if you would have taken a chance to do something because you are alone, and the things that people do when they are alone will blow your mind, right? There are things people do that when they are alone. You don't want to be there to see that. But they did not have that kind of privacy. They could not take a chance and do something. So when you consider being joined to Jesus like a branch would be to the vine, it means that you have eyes on you all the time. We have eyes on us all the time. And when if you acknowledge the abiding, you realize that you make different choices when you realize that eyes are on you constantly. But with the same vine now, he also said, I am the vine and you are the branches. He that abides in me stays stuck to me, remains permanently connected to me. He says, and I in him, the same is going to bring forth much fruit. He said, you're going to be fruitful, right? If you allow yourself to remain connected to me. He says, for with me, you can do nothing. He said, you can do nothing. So the day that we detach, and many times we do detach, and that is the reality that we see in our lives. We don't realize that we're not being fruitful in certain areas, and it's because we detach. The day that we detach, we are unfruitful, and really in the things of the kingdom, we become useless. Not something we want to think about, but we become useless. So he said that without him, we can do nothing. Now we'll tell ourselves, but there are a lot of things I could do without him. I get up in the morning, I function, I do what I have to do, I go to work, I'm good at my job and all of that. But guess what? There's no way we could fulfill our purpose as a branch unless we are connected to him. And so think about it, whatever that one duty, what's your duty? The duty that we have as a branch is what we need to fulfill. So for each of us, there's this one duty, because the one duty that the branch has is to bring forth fruit. That's your whole job. They say, I gave you one thing. You had one thing to do. And that one thing was to bring forth fruit. So you were created as a branch to bring forth fruit. And so in our individual lives, we have to ask ourselves, what is that one thing that we were created to do, if we are not attached to the vine, he said, you cannot do it without him. So there's this one thing. He said, I give you one job, right? And so whatever it is, what our branch represents, the kind of fruit that it's supposed to bring forth, the difference that we are supposed to be able to make in this world, there is no way we could do it. We cannot do it unless we are abiding, unless we are attached and stuck to and permanently connected with. And then he goes on to say, he says that if you abide in him and he abides in us, he says we can ask anything. I didn't get to the thing yet. You all give me a minute, I get in there, right? He says we can ask anything and it will be done. What does that ask mean? Because we have one understanding of I'll ask anything. But then remember, this asking has to do with the abiding. It has to be with the attachment. It has to be with the way that we are connected. So that ask, what it means is that we could draw anything from the source, from the vine, if we are abiding. So when you're abiding, asking is not something that is external to you. Asking is something that you are draw. It's like I can withdraw. I can draw from because I am connected. I'm joined. These girls were joined at the head. They shared blood vessels. It was a shared experience. Right? So they didn't have to literally ask for anything. It was a shared experience, okay? And so when you look at that being connected to the Lord in that way, the sap that flows through the vine has access to the branch, but only if the branch is connected to in that kind of way. But somehow when you get the picture of the Siamese twins, and we know that we like our own way. We want those moments in our lives. Remember when I was talking on Wednesday, and I was speaking about, just giving up and floating on him, on that river. You get into the deep and you just have to trust him. We want to stand up where it's ankle deep or where it's knee deep because we have control. And literally, with this, we end up having to give up control. So the asking is that we can draw anything from him as the source. All right? So it is accessing. And why we could do that is because we are joined inseparably. We are fused and welded to him, so to speak. Now, this is the part that is scary. Do you know that when the scripture tells us if you look at Matthew 19 and verse 5, it says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. Do you know what that cleave means? It says, and the two shall become what? One flesh. One flesh. Now if you're saying, Reverend Martinez, where are you going with this? It said that the two shall become one flesh. Another version says that cleave, when it says cleave to his wife, it says to be united firmly, joined inseparably, fused and welded to his wife. That is the kind of joining. So it's like the Lord is saying, you're going to have to be conjoined twins. What does that mean in the sense of marriage? He said that you're one flesh. The scripture said that, and I didn't make this up. He says the two shall become one flesh. And so it's indicating a kind of joining that you don't separate. Okay? So there's supposed to be a harmony in your movements. Think about the conjoined twins. They had no choice, but when they walked, they had to develop a rhythm. Right? Or else you walk in a double step, the next one taking long strides. You had to develop a rhythm to walk together. Or else you're pulling and tugging, you're falling down steps, you're doing all of that. And in marriage, figuratively, if you doing a double step and the other one doing one wide step, you're not staying in sync. So you have to develop a harmony, right? There's a oneness in your existence. That is what is supposed to happen. So what does that look like? That means that you can't have private phone lives. Because a lot of people, those things mash up marriages, I'm telling you. Private phone lives. You can't have no office romance. Because some people have their office husband. You know, the person that you just have this, you're not doing anything with them, you know, but you have this little intimacy. You look forward to seeing them as your office husband, right? And so you can't have an office romance like that going on because you're joined to think about if everywhere that you went, your wife is with you. Everywhere you go, your husband is with you. You have eyes on you all the time. So the things that you wouldn't say, the things that you wouldn't do, right? If it is that the person was right there in your face, it's the same kind of behavior because he says, in God's eyes, he sees the two as one flesh. He says that you're joined in this way. You don't have a hidden bank account that you didn't tell him about. Right? You don't have a pair of shoes and a pair of handbags. And I'm saying that you didn't tell him about. Most times it's the man that have their little private account that they didn't tell you about, right? But you don't have your stash of a new pair of shoes and a new handbag that you know you pay $10 for, and you're going to pull it out as though, me, I always had this, right? So you don't have this hidden thing in your closet because you are joined together. Right? He sees it too as one flesh. And so eyes on you. So there's transparency. You say, but Lord, what kind of union, did we get into when we said that we were married? It's like if you don't have no own business. People want to get married these days and it's like, this is my business. I have my own business. I have my own private life. And all these things. But marriage is that kind of sharing, I know some people like, oh gosh, boy, does it kind of join in? Just think about, we have two things to think about. We need to be joined inseparably to Jesus Christ because the benefit of it is that one, we will fulfill our purpose and we will be able to draw anything that we need. You could draw from him because there is that connection. And then when it gets into the married life now, this is what is required of us. Could you imagine if we were living this way with our spouses and understanding the kind of joining, understanding what we signed up for? This is what we signed up for when you put your signature on the document, all right? This is what you signed up for, not to have a whole private life going when you're supposed to be joined to somebody else. All right? But the benefit of that is what? The blessing in it is that you have free access to each other's resources. Materially, emotionally, spiritually. You can draw from each other. Draw from. When you're down, you could draw something from them to pick you up. When you don't understand something, I remember I have these friends in Canada, and they buy these reading glasses, and I can't remember what it is that happened, but between the both of them, with their eyes, he said, where this one falls short, the other one pick it up. Where this one would remember that, the other one might forget it. And so they complement each other. So I tried to remember what was the example with the glasses. But they always said, between the both of us, we make one whole person. He said, because where one lacking, the other one has it. So between the two of them, combine them together, it's one good, strong, whole person. And that's how God, a lot of times he made marriage to function like that. So that we complement each other, so that where one is lacking, the other one makes up for it. Amen. So I just wanted to share this because I just saw this conjoined twins and I found it to be a horror. And then to think that this is the kind of connection that Jesus wants with us. And we have to operate differently, in our marriages and so. So God bless you all. That's a little nugget for this weekend. And, pray for the camp. The camp starts on Monday. So pray for the camp. And, if you could send people, I will even take last minute people. They could come, they could pay, on the day, whatever. But I just want all the young people to gather. I just want bring them. All right? And I will do what I have to do with them. So God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend. And we join up next week, Wednesday, God willing, for another Tea with Me.